at the short, extraordinary, and tragic life of one of history's greatest vocalists. Karen Carpenter's. When her body was found in bed at just 32 years old, a devastating shock to both her family and millions of fans around the world. From her meteoric rise to fame with the Carpenters, to an ill-fated marriage, and a relentless private battle with a devastating mental illness, Karen endured a level of pain few ever truly saw. Beneath the soft melodies and gentle image was a life marked by deep suffering, quietly hidden from the public eye. Few people realized that behind the spotlight, Karen was also involved in a series of complicated romantic relationships with several well-known men. Who were they? And what truly led to her tragic and untimely end? The answers go far beyond the familiar headlines. Stay until the very end to uncover the full, never-before-told truth about her life. Karen Carpenter was born on March 2, 1950, in New Haven, Connecticut, into what appeared to be an ordinary family, one that was, in reality, filled with unspoken tension and hidden pain. Her father worked in the printing industry, the son of missionaries who had lived in China, carrying with him the discipline and rigidity of an older generation. Her mother, Agnes Carpenter, was a traditional housewife, proud, controlling, and openly biased toward the child she believed to be the family's true prodigy, Richard Carpenter. From an early age, Karen learned what it meant to grow up in the shadow of a brother her mother proudly called the family's great hope. In the neighborhoods of New Haven, Karen and Richard played outside with other children, their laughter echoing between houses as baseballs cracked sharply into worn gloves. In those games, where speed, strength, and instinct mattered, Karen often surprised everyone. Despite being smaller and a girl, she was frequently chosen before her brother, impressing the other kids with her quick reactions and fearless energy. But real life followed very different rules. At home, Karen was almost always the one left waiting. Agnes never tried to conceal her favoritism. Richard's every musical note and achievement was celebrated, while Karen received praise only for being well-behaved or for supporting her brother. Even the family's biggest decision, moving to Los Angeles, was made with a single purpose: to nurture Richard's musical future, not Karen's. As a teenager, Karen quietly hoped her mother would one day recognize her own talent, but that moment never arrived. Ironically, Karen's true path into music emerged from an unexpected place: school. A classmate named Frankie Chavez, the drummer in the school band, caught her attention. Karen was instantly drawn to the drums, to their raw yet disciplined rhythm, a sound that felt both wild and perfectly controlled. She began borrowing Frankie's drum kit to practice, and after only a few attempts, she amazed him with her natural timing and instinctive feel for rhythm. Before long, Karen found her inspiration in Ringo Starr, the legendary drummer of the Beatles, who would become her ultimate musical idol. Karen dreamed of one day playing the drums like her idol, even owning the exact same Ludwig drum kit he used. But at the time, that set cost $300, an enormous amount for the Carpenter family, equivalent to more than $1,500 today. Karen pleaded with her parents relentlessly, using every ounce of charm, persistence, and determination she had, until something almost miraculous happened. They finally said yes. The day Karen wrapped her arms around her first Ludwig drum kit, it felt as though she was holding her dream in her hands. From that moment on, her afternoons were filled with the echoing beat of drums coming from the family garage, where a thin girl with neatly tied brown hair would lose herself completely in rhythm. Before long, Karen formed an all-girl band called 2+2, determined to prove that women could be drummers too, an idea that was nearly unheard of at the time. But that first dream didn't last. When Karen suggested inviting her brother Richard to join the group, the other members strongly objected, accusing her of betraying the band's all-female spirit. Soon after, the group disbanded. Still, that early setback didn't stop her. Karen, Richard, and a tuba player went on to form the Dick Carpenter Trio. Yet Karen kept one secret to herself. Although she possessed a mesmerizing 3-octave voice capable of stunning any listener, she remained hidden behind her drums, allowing guest singers to take the microphone. The trio performed in nightclubs and even appeared on the talent show The All-American College Show, quietly building a foundation for what was yet to come. At just 16 years old, Karen's voice unexpectedly caught the attention of producer Joe Osborne, who stopped in his tracks to listen. Impressed, he invited her into the studio to record Looking for Love, a song written by her brother, Richard. The single was released quietly and failed to make an impact, never charting anywhere in the United States. At the time, it seemed like a dead end, but fate had other plans. Years later, after the Carpenters became a global musical phenomenon, that forgotten 45 revolutions per minute record turned into a highly sought-after collector's item. Today, only about 500 copies are believed to exist, each valued at roughly $2,000. Back then, however, Karen still thought of herself as just the drummer, often laughing at the idea that her voice could ever be something special. Karen and Richard pressed on with a new band called Spectrum, which secured a regular performance spot at Disneyland, playing smooth jazz for families and children. The 1960s were a strange and divided time, young people torn between the rising hippie counterculture and a nostalgic affection for icons like Mickey Mouse. During one performance, someone in the crowd shouted a request for Light My Fire, the hit song by The Doors. Eager to please, Spectrum agreed, unaware that the decision would prove disastrous. Word of the off-style performance quickly reached Victor Gruber, head of Disneyland's entertainment division. Enraged, he rushed over and was horrified to find Karen and her band playing psychedelic rock in the middle of a family theme park. Within minutes, a decision was made. The band was banned from Disneyland for life. Karen left the park heartbroken. Yet, as fate would have it, when one door closed, another, far greater, was about to open. 3 years later, in 1969, the real breakthrough finally arrived. A&M Records signed a contract with the Carpenter siblings, marking the beginning of a powerful new chapter in their career. The Carpenters released their debut album, Ticket to Ride, named after the iconic Beatles song they chose to reinterpret. As a lifelong admirer of the legendary band, Karen couldn't help but worry whether her idols would approve of their softer, more delicate rendition. What happened next stunned her. Paul McCartney himself listened to the track and declared, "She has the best female voice in the world." The words struck Karen deeply, leaving a lasting mark on her heart and confidence. But success came with its own challenges. Standing just 5 feet 4 inches, Karen appeared almost swallowed by the massive drum kit she loved. From the audience's perspective, drumsticks flashed through the air, yet the person behind them was barely seen. Richard, responsible for the songwriting and arrangements, delivered musical brilliance but lacked the stage presence to fully command a crowd. Slowly, a realization set in. If the Carpenters were going to truly connect with the public, Karen needed to step forward as both the voice and the face of the group. It was a painful shift. Drumming was Karen's sanctuary, the one place where she could disappear and feel safe away from the spotlight. Still, she made the sacrifice, agreeing to bring in another drummer, Cubby O'Brien, a former Disney Mouseketeer. From that moment on, Karen became the emotional center of the Carpenters, while the drums she loved were gradually pushed further back on stage. By 1973, the band's albums carried a clear and unmistakable sound. Karen's warm, velvety voice front and center, with the drums that once defined her presence now reduced to a subtle echo in the background. But as time would reveal, becoming the center of attention came with a heavy price. During an interview in Japan, at the peak of the Carpenters' fame, a journalist struggled to pronounce the group's name and mistakenly referred to them as lead sister instead of the Carpenters. The slip quickly took on a life of its own. Japanese fans embraced the nickname with enthusiasm, printing it on T-shirts and celebrating Karen as the heart of the duo. With her shy yet radiant smile, Karen often wore a shirt reading "Lead Sister" on stage, unaware of how deeply that label would shape her identity. Not long after, "We've Only Just Begun" swept across the world. The song captured the spirit of new beginnings, love, and hope, feelings that resonated deeply with countless young couples of the era. Its gentle melody, romantic lyrics, and Karen's soft, almost whisper-like voice made it unforgettable. Behind the scenes, Richard once again crafted the perfect arrangement, allowing her voice to glow effortlessly. Few listeners realized that the song had begun life as a simple bank commercial jingle. Richard, however, recognized its hidden potential and transformed it into a timeless classic. What started as an obscure tune soon became the anthem of an entire decade. While searching for inspiration one day, Richard happened to hear the jingle on television and immediately felt something special. He contacted the songwriters, purchased the rights, and began reshaping it. The original advertisement featured a young couple starting their married life, and when Richard and Karen recorded the song, they preserved that theme of hopeful beginnings. Before long, We've Only Just Begun became a worldwide sensation, played at countless weddings across the globe. So many that it's hard to imagine a time without it. Yet, in a surprising twist, this sweet and sentimental love song would later appear in several dark and unsettling film scenes, adding an unexpected layer to its enduring legacy. Karen Carpenter's tender, emotional voice would later echo in chilling contrast through dark cinema, most memorably in the horror film 1408, based on a story by Stephen King, and in John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. In the latter, her bright, hopeful song played as the main character was led into a mental institution, creating an unsettling irony. By this point, Karen was standing at the absolute peak of her career. Chart-topping hits, platinum albums, and worldwide fame had made her a global icon. Yet behind the success, Karen yearned for something she could never seem to reach: her mother's love and approval. That affection remained firmly directed toward Richard, who continued to be Agnes Carpenter's greatest source of pride. No matter how hard Karen tried, nothing seemed to fill that emotional gap. And over time, that absence would quietly carve a wound with devastating consequences. In 1976, what appeared to be an ordinary moment became a critical turning point in Karen's life. While reviewing footage from one of her own performances, she paused on a single stage photograph. The spotlight revealed her glowing face, admired by millions, but Karen saw only what she believed was a chubby body. In that instant, a wave of self-disgust overwhelmed her. She had experimented with dieting since high school, always thinking she was slightly overweight. But that image intensified her insecurity and pushed her fixation with her appearance to a dangerous level. Determined to change herself, Karen chose an extreme solution. Long before personal trainers became a common accessory for celebrities, she hired one, convinced that discipline and control would finally give her the body she desired. Following strict instructions, she abandoned old habits and committed fully to an intense fitness and nutrition regimen. Karen followed every rule with unwavering determination, certain she was doing the right thing. But months later, when she looked at herself in the mirror, she was stunned. Her body had become lean and muscular, strong, yet far removed from the soft, delicate femininity she had always dreamed of attaining. The disappointment only deepened, and Karen's insecurity grew more intense. She abruptly abandoned her training routine and decided to design what she believed would be her perfect diet. Every calorie was counted, every portion weighed, until eating became a cruel mental battle between control and fear. At meals with friends, Karen appeared cheerful, often offering pieces of her food to others, a subtle strategy to eat less without drawing attention. To most people, it looked like simple kindness. Almost no one questioned it. Almost no one except her mother. Agnes Carpenter began to notice the pattern. Karen would pretend to finish her meals, quietly passing food to others at the table. When Agnes realized what was happening, she tried to intervene in her own way, insisting that Karen eat something afterward, usually her mother's cooking, to make sure she was getting enough nourishment. Despite these attempts, nothing seemed to stop what had already taken hold. The illness was deeply rooted, and neither concern nor control could reverse its course. By the time Karen stepped on stage in 1975, audiences were shocked, not only by her unmistakable, crystal-clear voice, but by her frighteningly thin appearance. The visible effects of her extreme dieting sent a chill through her fans. Letters poured in from around the world, begging her to stop. Karen responded with a gentle smile, brushing it off by saying she was just a little tired. Meanwhile, pressure mounted from places she never anticipated. Karen and Richard, once celebrated as the embodiment of wholesome, clean-cut America, began to feel the weight of a changing public image. The Carpenters had been praised at the highest levels. Even President Richard Nixon had once called them the best of young America. But as the nation reeled from the Watergate scandal, the flawless image of the Carpenter family began to fracture as well. The sweetness Karen projected on stage slowly became a mask, hiding the growing wounds within her soul. At just 26 years old, Karen was financially independent and adored worldwide, yet she was still living with her parents, a situation that felt increasingly suffocating. In 1976, she finally took a step toward freedom, moving out and purchasing 2 luxury apartments in Century City, Los Angeles. It wasn't about status or excess, it was about breathing freely for the first time in her life. Karen wanted something simple and deeply human, to live like an ordinary woman, to love and be loved, and to one day build a family of her own. Throughout the early years of her career, she had largely avoided romantic relationships, convinced that dating was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her life revolved entirely around recording studios, rehearsals, and the relentless glare of the stage lights, leaving little room for anything else. As Karen approached her 30s, a quiet emptiness began to take hold. The thunder of applause at the end of each concert no longer eased the loneliness she carried inside. When she finally allowed herself to seek love, she did so with overwhelming intensity. Her life soon became linked to a series of high-profile men: music producer Mike Curb, who would later enter politics, a member of the Osmond family, sitcom star Tony Danza from Who's the Boss, and even comedian Steve Martin. The names were glamorous, the moments dazzling, yet none of the relationships endured. Karen gave deeply and loved gently, but it was perhaps that very sensitivity that left her so vulnerable. Each disappointment seemed to push her further inward, strengthening her need for control. As she and Richard continued touring through South America and Europe, Karen brought along her close friend Ray One for emotional support. It didn't take long for Ray One to realize that her true responsibility wasn't companionship, but vigilance, watching Karen closely, trying to prevent her from secretly taking laxatives to maintain her weight. Karen's fixation on her body had grown dangerously out of control. During that same tour, the Carpenters appeared on the BBC program Nationwide. The interview began smoothly, until the host, Sue Lawley, abruptly shifted the focus to Karen's appearance. In front of millions of viewers, she recited numbers highlighting Karen's dramatic weight loss and directly asked whether she was suffering from anorexia nervosa, a term still unfamiliar to much of the public at the time. Karen responded with a strained smile, attempting to maintain her composure, but a flash of panic crossed her eyes. Sensing the danger, Richard immediately intervened, cutting the interview short with a firm statement, "We're not here to talk about that." The interview may have ended, but its impact followed Karen for years. It wasn't merely embarrassment, it was the feeling of being exposed, laid bare before the world. The stage that had once given her love and safety now felt like a place of scrutiny and judgment. That sense of vulnerability never fully left her. In 1980, as she struggled quietly with her inner turmoil, Karen met Thomas James Burris, a handsome and successful real estate developer who seemed to exist far outside the chaotic world of fame she had grown exhausted by. Calm, attentive, and composed, Burris made Karen believe she had finally found the peace she had been searching for. Their relationship moved quickly. After just 2 months of dating, he proposed. At first, they agreed on a long engagement, at least a year, but Karen's heart was impatient. Not for attention or success, but for something far more personal: motherhood. She dreamed of a modest, loving home filled with children's laughter, not the relentless rhythm of tour schedules and stage lights. When they shortened the engagement and announced a wedding just 2 months away, rumors quickly spread that Karen might be pregnant. The reality, however, was far more devastating. Just days before the rehearsal dinner, Burris confessed that he had undergone a vasectomy years before meeting her. In a single moment, Karen's hopes of becoming a mother collapsed. She realized then that his rush to the altar had been an attempt to conceal the truth before she discovered it herself. Heartbroken and betrayed, Karen reached out to the one person she believed might protect her: her mother. She called Agnes Carpenter, desperate for comfort and guidance, pleading for help in calling off the wedding. But the response she received was not warmth or understanding. It was cold and unyielding, leaving Karen more alone than ever. "You absolutely cannot cancel the wedding," her mother insisted. "You've made your bed. Now you must lie in it." It was the most devastating advice Karen would ever receive. The ceremony went on as scheduled, but what followed was not a fairy tale, it was the beginning of a living nightmare. Burris revealed himself to be obsessed with money and status, constantly demanding expensive cars, luxury homes, and a lifestyle far beyond his means. Karen gave him everything: her heart, her trust, and her fortune. She handed over tens of thousands of dollars at a time, sometimes as much as $50,000, simply to keep him satisfied. As her savings drained away, something far more precious disappeared with them. Burris was harsh, arrogant, and relentlessly cruel, his verbal abuse leaving Karen isolated, frightened, and emotionally shattered. All Karen had ever truly wanted was to become a mother. When she learned that a vasectomy could sometimes be reversed, she begged him to consider surgery, clinging to the hope that a child might somehow save their failing marriage. His response was merciless. He told her he would never have children with her and dismissed her as nothing more than a bag of bones. Those words crushed what little self-worth she had left. Worn down by the collapse of her marriage and years of relentless touring, Karen finally reached out for professional help. In 1982, she began seeing psychotherapist Stephen Levenkron, a specialist in eating disorders who believed he had encountered the worst cases imaginable, until he met Karen. Her confessions left him stunned. She admitted to swallowing 80 to 90 laxative pills every single night. Even more alarming, she was abusing thyroid medication to accelerate her metabolism, despite having no medical need for it. Levenkron immediately took the pills away and urged her to stop. But Karen was already deeply trapped in a cycle of dependency and self-destruction. Desperate to save her, he arranged a family therapy session, holding on to the fragile hope that love and understanding might still be enough to pull her back from the edge. The entire Carpenter family traveled from California to New York for one last attempt at healing. Inside a stark white therapy room, the doctor asked each family member to look at Karen and say the words she had been desperate to hear: "I love you." Richard, her loyal brother and lifelong musical partner, spoke without hesitation. But when it was Agnes Carpenter's turn, the room grew cold. She corrected the doctor sharply, "Call me Mrs. Carpenter," and then fell silent. She could not say the words. The air became unbearable. The session ended without comfort, without closure. No one met Karen's eyes as they left. Karen remained in New York, clinging to her final thread of hope in Dr. Levenkron. But that hope soon shattered when her close friend Rayon uncovered a devastating truth. He was not a licensed medical doctor. Whatever fragile belief Karen still held collapsed completely. Her health deteriorated rapidly, and she was eventually hospitalized, nourished through a feeding tube. Ironically, this marked the brief moment when she appeared to recover. She began eating again, 3 meals a day. She smiled more. There was light in her face. Believing she was strong enough to move forward, Karen chose to leave the hospital and return to Los Angeles, the place that had always felt like home. Though her body regained weight, her inner world remained painfully delicate. Many felt she ended treatment too soon, but Karen simply smiled and said she wanted a fresh start. Back in Los Angeles, those around her believed she was finally healing. She ate regularly, laughed with friends, and even spoke about returning to the recording studio, the space where she and Richard had once created magic together. Perhaps Karen herself believed she had escaped the illness that had haunted her for so many years. But what no one realized was that this fragile calm was only the final quiet before the storm. On a February morning in 1983, Karen woke early in the house where she had grown up. She went downstairs, poured herself a cup of coffee, exchanged a few words with her mother, then returned to her bedroom to prepare for the day. Hours later, Agnes walked upstairs and encountered a sight no parent should ever face. Karen lay motionless on the floor of her childhood bedroom, the same room where the girl who once moved millions with her voice now lay in silence forever. At first, her death was baffling. Karen no longer appeared dangerously thin. She seemed to be recovering. But the autopsy revealed a tragic truth. Years of abusing ipecac syrup, a drug intended only for emergency poisoning cases, had irreparably damaged her heart. Used repeatedly to induce vomiting, the chemical had slowly weakened her heart muscle until it finally gave out. Karen Carpenter died at just 32 years old. Her passing sent shockwaves through the music world. She was not only half of the Carpenters, the duo that defined an era, but her death also forced the world to confront anorexia nervosa, an illness long ignored, misunderstood, and dismissed. In her memory, her family founded the Karen A. Carpenter Memorial Foundation to support research and raise awareness, so others would not have to suffer in silence as she had. Yet Karen left behind more than heartbreak. She left a legacy. Her warm, pure, unmistakable voice continues to bring tears to listeners whenever Close to You or Rainy Days and Mondays plays. Artists from Madonna to Shania Twain have named her as a profound influence. Her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame stands not only for fame, but for vulnerability, brilliance, and the hidden cost of perfection. Years later, tributes kept coming. The album If I Were a Carpenter, the avant-garde film superstar told through Barbie dolls, and stage productions where her voice became the emotional core. And perhaps that is why, even now, when we've only just begun Drifts Through the Air, it feels as if Karen Carpenter never truly left. She is simply singing from somewhere far away, free from pain, free from hunger, where her heart can finally rest.